I don't care about realism, and that's why I stopped drawing portraits. I stopped making art that looked like this. In fact, I didn't paint or draw for almost 10 years. But lately, I kind of want to paint people again, and I don't give a hoot about making them look realistic. So let's leave all our hoots behind, and today I'm going to walk you through a different kind of portrait tutorial. Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back. My name is Shayda Campbell, and on this channel we get creative together. Today I've got something special and different. I always try to share exactly what's going on in my own sort of creative life, and lately I've been really drawn back into the wonderful world of drawing and painting people. This was kind of my art first love when I was in high school, and it feels really good to get back to a favorite subject. As I said in the intro, I left portraiture behind because of a hang-up, and my hang-up was realism. I just got so obsessed with having to draw perfectly and drawing like hands and feet, which are notoriously difficult and were very difficult for me. Art became really boring, it became stressful, and I just completely stopped, and I really didn't draw or paint at all for 10 years. I found myself mostly in serving, waitressing jobs. I still had that creative spark when my manager was like, who wants to do the chalkboard? I was like, me, I have to. And everyone was like, oh my God, let Shayda do the chalkboard. But in my personal life, I really wasn't taking on any major creative pursuits. And I don't even think I realized how much I missed it until I got back into it, started the YouTube channel. That's the story. It's been told here a lot. But even with all my creative pursuits here on YouTube, namely watercolor and watercolor florals and journaling, I never found my way back to people, to portraiture, until recently. I started painting people again, and I just freed myself of this need to draw and paint really realistically. And I think one of the best, healthiest ways to free yourself of that urge to get every little detail just so is to break any subject, people included, down into its most basic forms. And that's what we're going to do in today's tutorial. And that's what I want to show you, is that you can come up with some really creative ways to paint and draw your subject when you do this one thing. And that's what I'm going to do right now. I have a printed 8x10 image of a woman, and we're going to break her down into the simplest of shapes. The easiest way to do this is to start with your printout, grab a piece of tracing paper and a brush pen, a marker. Something with that chunky nib is going to, I guess you could say, encourage you not to get too detailed. So using a big marker will help you to make big shapes. That's the idea here. And just trace and look for the shapes. Now, if you wonder, where can I get an image? A great place to do that is Pixabay. It's a lot of royalty-free images. You search woman, download one that you like, make it the size that you desire, and then all you have to do is print it out. Black and white works, and there you've got your image ready for tracing. Now, once your trace is done, you'll have an image that looks something like this. Very basic shapes, eyes, lips, hair. We're not capturing pupils and all those tiny details. You're going to stick it in place on some watercolor paper, take a piece of graphite transfer paper, put it dark side down, and then begin to go over your image with a nice sharp pencil in order to transfer it. I know that not everyone loves tracing. I get that, but remember, this is an exercise. If you want to learn to draw something or get comfortable with a new subject, you got to do some practice work, and that's exactly what this is. So I encourage you to not be afraid of tracing. This is an exercise. That's what the transfer looks like. Now we've got these basic shapes transferred to our watercolor paper, and we're ready to begin painting. We get to approach a subject that might previously have scared us, something like people, and we're breaking it down into the simplest of forms in order to make it fun, in order to make a piece of art that is uniquely ours, and in order to take the fear out of the creative process. And personally, I am doing my best to leave that annoying, nagging need for realism far behind me. This need for me to get away from realism has always been at the heart of the channel. It's kind of been at the heart of my art resurgence because I felt like realism backed me into a corner with my art. And so when I started the channel and I was filming my channel trailer, I think in 2016, I talked about, we all have a camera in our pocket, so you don't need to be a camera. I think there's a place for realism in art. It's just not my place. And so if you're finding yourself struggling with, well, how do I know it's good? When I draw or paint realistically, that's when I really feel like I've hit a marker of success. I think that mindset is really hard to get out of, especially when you're getting started, but it's also a mindset that can make it feel like impossible to start. You know what I mean? One thing that I recommend is to look at art and find art that speaks to you. And you don't have to go to a museum. Look at children's books. Find a storybook that has illustrations that really speak to you. Sometimes it surprises me how the most simple illustrations are the ones that I really love. I also like to go on Etsy and search antique oil paintings and watercolors and just, kind of favorite the ones that I love and that I think are beautiful. And more often than not, they're slightly abstracted, they're a little impressionistic. And when you find that art that speaks to you, I think it's a lot easier to say, hey, I kind of want to paint like that. For me to make art, I need to be inspired by art. Anywho, let's mix up some color for her skin. So for a Caucasian skin, I find a good blend of pigments is Jaune Brilliant, a little red brown, and raw sienna. And then you can mix in white and more water as you see fit. Test your colors out on a bit of scrap paper to make sure that it looks like a natural. And then we're just going to start applying that pigment to the area of her face. The idea here is simple, simple, simple. Remember, realism is just an expression of technique. It's not typically at the heart of how you express who you are as an artist or illustrator. It can be a part of that, but it's never your whole identity. And today, what I'm trying to do is take this portrait and break it down into the most simple shapes. I'm gonna make it so simple because I have a problem with adding too many details to all my art, more details than I care to see in the finished piece, if you know what I mean. So exercises like this I find very valuable and very important, and I hope you will as well. What I want to do next is take a slightly darker mix of that color, so you can add a little more red-brown, a little more Jaune Brilliant, and I'm just going to add some splotches. Use the photograph, the printout, as your guide. For this one, she definitely has some darkness on the right side of her face. And I just followed exactly what I saw in the photo, not trying for ultimate realism here, just kind of adding some splotchy color. I am going to use a really dark red for her lips, leaving a bit of a highlight where I see one in the image. So I'm using that photograph very much as a guide, but I'm just trying to get the shapes. Think about the shapes, not the details. So instead of thinking about all the little details in the shadow, we're just thinking like, okay, let's put a bit of darker color on the right-hand side of her face, on the right-hand side of her nose. And then for the eyes, I think you really recognize the shapes. I'm not going for lashes or pupils or even the highlight in the eye. I am just following the shapes that I traced, and you'll see this as I paint. We're keeping the eyes, an area that could contain a lot of detail, very basic, and I think it creates the most wonderful, interesting sort of portrait. A nice element here, part of this practice exercise that I really like, is that I don't know this person. I'm not trying to create an actual portrait of this woman, so it frees me up. The photograph is sort of soft and romantic. The painting is a little more edgy. She looks a little more Patti Smith. She's got a harsh brow, and I'm all for it. So in that way, I don't have to worry about realism as well, making this a very nice exercise. I put a splash of pink on her cheeks. Then I'm going in and adding a little more shading on her skin, but I'm also saying to myself as I watch this back, stop, Shayda, please stop, because this is an exercise in simplifying. So stop adding all those details. That's the whole point. So if you're in the same boat with me, this is a great way to pull back and say, don't overdo it on the detail. Look at the basic shapes. I want to do a background color for this piece, although that's not necessary. You don't have to fill in the background. So I'm using a blue. It's a blend of light blue and French gray, just a hint of indigo in there as well, and lots of water, of course, so that it's nice and light. And then I just used a large flat wash brush to do kind of a messy background. Everything about this is, I want to see the brush strokes, I want everything to be free and a little bit messy. And I think the backdrop does kind of add to that nature of the piece, that messy nature. And I felt like her hair was kind of like, wow, she has a lot of it. So I did decide to add a little of that dark red that I used on the lip and just make it look like there is a bit of a shirt there as well. But I love the way the red and the blue look with that olive skin. And we're going to let the painting dry. And then when it is dry, it took about 15 minutes, not long, I want to do a little mixed media. So this is sort of fun. If you have some colored pencils or brush markers, you can add some kind of scribbly details using another medium. So try colored pencils, try watercolor pencils if you like, or definitely brush pens as well. Go over watercolors really nicely. I'm beginning the process with black and dark brown pencils and just adding some scribbly bits to her hair to help with the look of hair texture. Although I'm still in my simplification era. I do not want to add too many details. So I'm keeping that in mind as I add some pencil marks. I'm also going to use some browns and beiges to help with the shading on her face. This is a really fun exercise. Like once you have the painting done, it's hard to mess it up or take it to a place that's completely different. So it's really exciting and freeing to kind of go in with this secondary medium and just add, do some scribbles in pink on her cheeks, do some scribbly bits in red on the shirt or whatever color you use for the shirt. You know what I mean? Actually, the places that I thought the colored pencils were most successful were the background and the shirt and the hair. So if you only added a little bit, add a little scribbly texture to the backdrop and maybe just a bit on her clothing, and you could just leave it at that. Again, keep it simple. Less is more. That's probably what I'm going to do the next time I create one of these portraits. And I'm definitely going to keep doing this because it was great practice for me, and it was lovely to come back to portraiture. It doesn't have to be your favorite piece of art, this portrait, but I think it's a great way to get you on the path to thinking about your art in a different way, to defining your own style, and it's definitely a great exercise to get you started on a new path, a new subject matter with your artwork, and that's what I'm doing today. So thank you so much for joining me and for giving me the space to try something new. I hope you enjoyed this. And if you're really digging this, there will be a bonus video next weekend over on my Patreon where we do another portrait painting a lot like this one. So head over there to get bonus content. It's only $2 a month or $22 for the entire year. Patreon.com/Shayda Campbell. You'll get bonus content every week, plus an extra video every month. And just recently, there is now a free membership option. So you're going to want to check that out right now.